Hello everyone, I'm Kathleen, and in this video I'm going to be talking about all of my 1-star reads. I did a similar thing a couple months ago where I talked about all of my 5-star reads, so a lot more of a positive video than this one will probably be, but I'm gonna try not to be too harsh with my 1-star reads. But anyway, jumping right in, the first one is Prom to Remember by Sandy Hall. And I got this one from the First in Line Club, which is a thing that I won that went on for a year where I got sent free advanced reader copies every month. And these books were real hit and miss with me. There are more than a few on this list, but other ones were 5-star reads, so it was a cool club to be a part of for a year. But yeah, this one I thought, would be a fun read when I saw it. Definitely looks very young and fluffy. I think I had recently read another advanced reader copy from this First in Line Club, The Fashion Committee by Susan Juby, and I really enjoyed this one and it was a lot of fun. So I went into A Prom to Remember thinking it would be very similar and another fun read, and it just wasn't. I don't know exactly what the difference was between the two, but this one just was not executed as well. And obviously they're both young and fluffy reads, but this one just was not as cute and enjoyable as The Fashion Committee. Next I have Uncommon Type by Tom Hanks, which is a collection of short stories, and I'm not a real short story person, so this one just didn't land for me. But I obviously was intrigued since it was Tom Hanks. And I liked the idea that every story somehow had a typewriter involved. That didn't end up being as cool as I thought it would be. And so yeah, this one was a 1-star read for me, but mostly just because I'm not into short stories. Next we have Genuine Fraud by E. Lockhart. This is another one from the First in Line Club, and I was really excited for this one as well. I thought it seemed like it would be such a cool read, but it was just kind of a confusing and also slightly boring mess to me. Next, we have The Whole Thing Together by Anne Broshers, which is another one from the First in Line Club. And I grew up loving The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants by Anne Broshers, and so I was, again, super excited for this one when it came in the mail, but I don't know. This was another just kind of boring one. It was another also really short one, which Genuine Fraud was also a very short one. And so I think that maybe didn't help. I just did not connect with this one like I did with The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants when I was growing up. Next, one of the few that I still own, I have Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, which, as we all know, was just horrifying. I might still someday do a reread simply so I can roast it, as I hated it so much. This is one that I do not mind just absolutely going off on. Like I said, I was gonna try to be nice to most of these books, but this is one that doesn't deserve any niceness. So yeah, I hate it with every fiber of my being. Next, I have Replica by Lauren Oliver, which I still have, but I am unhauling it. I just haven't unhauled it yet. This one I was really excited for because, again, it has a really cool concept in which there is one story from one character's perspective told one direction, and then if you flip the book over, it's the other character's story in the other direction. So yeah, I was really excited for this one, but it just ended up being a letdown. Again, I was kind of bored by it, and I decided not to continue with the series. Next, I have 10 Things I Can See From Here by Carrie Mack. This was another First in Line Club book. It's got this really beautiful cover, and it's about a shy character, so I always am interested when the main character has like social anxiety and stuff, but I just didn't connect with the main character the way that I thought I would. And so this one ended up being a disappointment. Next, I have My Name is Lucy Barton by Elizabeth Stroupt, and I got this one from the exchange wall at the library, and there weren't a lot of good options that day, so I just kind of picked this one as there wasn't anything better to pick, but I didn't really think I would like it, and I did not. But I liked it even less than I thought that I would. Like, I truly did not get the point of this book. It had no plot. There was just nothing here. and I really wondered why it had been written. But moving on, I have the Reawakened series by Colleen Hook, which is another one from the First in Line Club. I think they sent me the second or third book in the series, so I went out and bought the first book, which was a mistake because the first book was poor. It just read a lot younger than I was expecting, and I just did not enjoy the vibes. So I did not continue the series, even though I had I think the third book in the series is the one they sent me. Next I have Girl in Pieces by Kathleen Glasgow, which is another one from the First in Line Club. This one, I just didn't enjoy it. It was kind of an intense read about a character with like a lot of mental health issues and stuff, and I don't know, I just didn't enjoy the experience of reading this one. Next I have Outward Blonde by Trish Cook, and this is one that I think was a part of like it was at like Barnes & Noble on like a sale table where you had to like buy to get one free or something, so it was just kind of the third one that I got for free. And yeah, it was just a silly read that I just didn't enjoy. It just wasn't my cup of tea. I feel like I remember the circumstances just being a little bit too silly and outlandish, and the main character maybe just a little bit too unlikable. Next I have In the Unlikely Event by Judy Blume, which sadly this was my first Judy Blume book ever, and so I wanted to like it because it's Judy Blume, but I just didn't. I'm pretty sure this was an adult book, so maybe I would like her YA fiction better. This one was another one that was just boring for me, but I do think I probably started in the wrong place for Judy Blume. Next I have Blood Rose Rebellion by Rosalind Eaves, and this is another First in Line book. And this one was like a fantasy, but I didn't like the magic system. It was a little too like fantasy meets Outward Blonde kind of. Like it had those very girly vibes, I guess. And I feel like I remember the main character just being really not very smart, just making bad choices. And it definitely leaned a lot more romantic fantasy, which romance isn't my favorite thing always in books, and so it just was not for me. Next I have Mosquito Land by David Arnold, which was not a First in Line book, but I did get a different book by David Arnold from the First in Line Club, and that was Kids of Appetite, which is one of my favorite books of all time. Definitely in my top 20 favorite books. And so I got Mosquito Land after reading this one, like immediately after reading this one, because I wanted to go back and read his debut novel, and I did not like it at all. I didn't like the main character. There was just such weird stuff going on. It was one of those books that just has lots of weird events and details and you're just left wondering like where the story's going and why. So yeah, Mosquito Land was a big disappointment after reading Kids of Appetite, which was a favorite. Next I have Flame in the Mist by Renee Attier, which this was another First in Line Club book, and I had actually not heard of Renee Attier at the time. I don't think I heard of her until after I started watching BookTube, so I now realize that she's kind of a big author, but I just did not enjoy Flame in the Mist. I feel like I'm saying that for all of these books. This was another one where I think I just was not connecting with the main character. This one was more of a straight-on fantasy, less of the romance happening. I feel like it was right up my alley. I went into it with a lot of excitement because it has this really pretty cover, and it's a fantasy, and I just thought it would have all the vibes that I would enjoy, but I didn't. I was surprised and disappointed. Next, I have Eligible by Curtis Sittenfeld. This was another one from the Library Exchange Wall, not from the First in Line Club, and this was another case where there just wasn't any other very intriguing options that day. I've never read Pride and Prejudice. This is a Pride and Prejudice retelling, so that could have been part of the problem, but I don't think that was all of the problem, because I genuinely think that this was a bad book. This is one of the ones that I really didn't like. Like, there's 1 stars where it's just not my cup of tea, and then there's 1 stars where I like really actively really dislike them, and this is one of those. It was just so surface level. The chapters were all so short, which doesn't always have to be a bad thing, but here it was. And the characters were just all so unlikable, and it was just so bad. But moving on to another one that I kind of really actively dislike quite a bit, and that is Crazy Rich Asians. I saw the movie, it was okay. I wasn't like blown away by it, but I thought the book might be a little better. It's not, you know, really my thing. It's very much a fluffy romance, but at the same time, I didn't dislike the movie, so I thought I might even like the book a little bit better, and I really disliked the book a lot more than the movie. Again, with this one, the characters were just, I hated them all. It was kind of a similar vibe to Eligible for me, which was not my vibe. Next, I have The Night Gwen Stacy Died by Sarah Bruni. And this one I saw like a little ad for it in a magazine like Cosmo or something, and I was caught by the title because I am a Spider-Man fan. And it is just the weirdest book I have ever read. Like I said, Mosquito Land has some weird details and odd events. This blows that out of the water. This was the weirdest book I've ever read. That is the only way to describe it. So yeah, I don't particularly enjoy like things that are super duper weird and you're just like, why? I know that's some people's vibe, but not mine. This was just so weird. Next, I have the sequel to Princess Academy by Shannon Hale. This is another one of my like top 10 favorite books of all time. And for the longest time, I did not read the sequel. First of all, I think she didn't write one right away. Like, it took a while. And so I didn't really know about it right away. And then even after I did know about it, this had been in my life for so many years as a standalone that I just didn't get around to the sequel for quite a few years after I found out that it existed. And I tell you what, I wish I had never known that it existed because it was very bad. It just had none of the whimsy and the heart and like the warm feelings that this one has. It just read like a moderately good children's novel, whereas this one just has such vibes. Yeah, I unhauled it and I did not complete the trilogy, which it is a trilogy, but I choose to believe that only this one exists. Next, I have P.S. I Love You, which I DNF'd this book, which if I DNF a book, I typically give it 1 star, because if it wasn't good enough for me to even finish, then for me, it's a 1-star rating, which my star system is very much just based on like my enjoyment level. Obviously, if I DNF a book, that's because I'm not enjoying it. And yeah, I tried reading this one a couple different times throughout my life, I'm pretty sure, and I just never can get into it. So, love the movie so much. One of my favorite movies, but can't get into the book. Next, I have Maze Runner, which I did complete the first book, but I didn't continue with the series because I just didn't get what all the hype was about. I did not enjoy this book. Like, it was okay, I guess. Like, I would perfectly be fine with recommending it to someone who's into dystopians. It's just like the last dystopian that I would possibly recommend, which I think was my problem because I am pretty into dystopians, especially dystopians that were coming out around this time, and I just think all of the other options are better than this. Next, I have Seraphina, which I was very excited for. It has a nice cover. It's about dragons. I don't read dragon books like super often, even though I am very into them. And so yeah, I was just really excited for this one, and then it was just boring, so boring. There were not enough dragons for this dragon book. There was, I think, maybe too much politics for me. I don't remember it super well. I didn't like the main character, but mostly I was just bored out of my mind. Next, I have Peter in Kensington Gardens. Not Peter Pan, Peter in Kensington Gardens, which is very different. This one's just weird. Again, it's Peter as like a baby, just has learned to walk, can't really even talk yet, baby. And so yeah, and he's just kind of wandering around Kensington Gardens, interacting with fairies, and yeah, it's just weird and not enjoyable and boring. Next, I have Dragon Rider by Cornelia Funk. which this is another one where I read it because the author wrote one of my favorite books of all time, and that is Inkheart. But yeah, this is another dragon one that was just disappointing because I was really hyped up because it was Cornelia Funk and dragons, and then it was disappointing. I read it when I was really young, and I have not read it since, so I do not remember it very well. I just remember being disappointed by it. I might have been bored by it. That is usually one of my top complaints, you may have noticed. Next, I have Forrest Gump. This is another one where I love the movie and the book is just terrible. It's another kind of weird one. There's just so many random things happen, which I know is how the movie is, but somehow in the movie it works and in the book it doesn't. Next, I have The Princess Diaries, which, much like P.S. I Love You, I loved the movie as a kid. I've tried to read the book several times, and I just can never get into it. Next, I have all of the sequels to City of Ember by Jean Duprow, and I loved this one growing up. It's kind of a dystopian. This is another one where I didn't read the sequels until I was quite a bit older. And yeah, the sequels were just all big disappointments after this first book. I didn't like where the series went after this first one. I didn't like the new characters or kind of world that was introduced. Next, I have World War Z, which I just simply didn't enjoy. I didn't like it almost read like nonfiction, like it was a person who was going around and interviewing a bunch of people trying to trace where the disease started, the zombie outbreak started. And so all of these different interviews were disconnected from each other. It wasn't like an overarching storyline. And so I just was not into it. And finally, I have Bridge of Clay by Marcus Zuzak, which this was on my shelf for quite a while because the shelf it was on was just not very full, and so I didn't have to get rid of it. But that shelf has recently filled up a little more, and I am going to be unhauling this one. This one was very disappointing because I really love The Book Thief by Marcus Zuzak, one of my top 10 favorite books of all time. And this one, again, boring. And one where I just didn't get the point, and it's so long. I don't know why it's so long. And yeah, this is just another one where I was like, why was this written? Why? What's the point? So yes, another boring disappointment. So yeah, that was it for all of my 1-star reads, most of which I don't actually own, obviously. Let me know down below some of the most disappointing books in your life. And now onto the quote for today's video, which today I have one from Eldest by Christopher Paolini, a book that is not disappointing. And this one is said by the character Oramus. And it goes, "Too many problems in this world are caused by men with noble dispositions and clouded minds. History provides us with numerous examples of people who were convinced they were doing the right thing and committed terrible crimes because of it." Thanks for watching. Remember, words matter.